Hey everybody, this could be fun. We're having fun. Cat Cuevas is joining us here today, and I want to just say to everybody, get ready, fasten your seatbelt. We're about to have a super, super great time. So thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. Cat is someone that takes creativity to the leadership level in so many ways. And I don't know what has happened to us over time where we thought that doing some of these things that we do in organizations in the world have to be boring, have to be, lack creativity and innovation. But we did, Kat. Haven't we gone through that? Myself, in my corporate world, gone through a period of where we had a lot of really cool creative things that people engage in, and then not so much. First, let me thank you for being here today. Thank you for joining us. Yeah. We're going to actually bring some of what you brought over in a minute. You just got done with a workshop here.
Yes.
All right. What was it like in the workshop, and how did people respond? Tell folks a little bit about what you just did and about what the audience did.
Yes. Well, in my workshop, it was called Burlesque and Bequest, and it was primarily about examining the stories that women inherit.
Yeah.
And bringing them to the surface, to the forefront of our experience right now in the present, so we can examine them, look at them, and find the intersection point where that story was forged and created up until now, and where we want it to go off into the future. If it's something we want to continue doing, to expand on, to make more grandiose, or to let go of and say goodbye to and heal. And so typically, the typical response to getting in that deep into that really juicy matter is fear. I often get a lot of the immediate terror face of like, we're gonna do what? And then women always surprise me, and regardless of their fear, they dive right in. And whatever I'm asking them to do, whether it's finger paint or dance or write or share their personal story with a partner, they just always exceed my expectations. I think it's a real testament to the power of the participants when they're invited to bring their whole self to the table.
How did this journey begin for you?
By accident.
Oh yeah,
actually.
Me too. Right.
Specifically, there's two starting points I find. One was an undergraduate when I was studying the Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa, and was captivated by a story of Amy Beale, who was down in South Africa during apartheid and was tragically, brutally murdered. And her parents and perpetrators went through the commission. And following through that story, a couple of the perpetrators and her parents got together and built a nonprofit organization together. And that blew my mind. I had never witnessed or experienced or even heard of that kind of empathy and forgiveness and connection and reconciliation before. And so at that moment, I knew it was my life's purpose to learn whatever it was that made that happen, and to learn it for myself and to be able to teach it to others. So that's where my career in leadership and conflict resolution and international relations really was forged at that moment. The second moment was the first time I saw a burlesque show.
Yeah. Can I ask, where did you see it first?
The first time I saw was in the Belltown area of Seattle, downtown Seattle. I was just at a happy hour with a girlfriend of mine, and we heard there was a show, so we walked right in with a little glass of champagne, didn't know what was happening really. And what I saw just astounded me. It was, again, a moment I had seen something I had never witnessed before, live in person. It was a group of women, probably 12 women, who were up on stage in the spotlight celebrating the heck out of their bodies and celebrating the heck out of the story that they were telling, and laughing the entire time. They were shimmering and shaking all of the wobbly bits that they could possibly get moving, and looking like they were loving it. And it occurred to me, I had never seen a group of women, let alone one woman, in such celebration of herself, never embodying her full joy. And it was another moment I said, oh my gosh, Whatever that is, I need to have it. I need to do it. I need to be it. I need to understand why these women are so happy to be in themselves and be in their bodies.
And for me as well, I grew up in New York, and part of that is being able to be part of communities that celebrate burlesque and other forms of dance in that way. But it's an honoring process.
It is.
And it's an honoring of the feminine in so many ways. But it's taken a bad rap. It's gotten a bad rap over time. Why do you think that is?
I think especially, well, it was actually, burlesque first was performed by men when it was originally started.
I actually have a few friends that still do it.
It's true. Back in the 1800s, it was a theater-style performance, and the specific intention of the art form was to make fun of political taboos and social taboos. And that's a thread that my troupe, Sinner St. Burlesque, still carries with it today.
Yeah.
But it is to poke fun, to mock, and to try to understand things that are unspeakable and untouchable. And I can't think of anything more political than a woman's body.
Tell us about your troupe.
Yes, Sinner St. Burlesque.
I love that
They are my soul sisters.
I said to Linda, you got to get somebody here from that. She's like, who? I said, I don't care. You got to have somebody here that we could talk about.
Yes. They are just my sanctuary. They are the most dynamic, most empowered, most authentic group of women that I know, and are willing to be vulnerable and just embody vulnerability as strength. And are leaders in their own right, and it just makes me a better person to even be around them. They are so magnificent, so willing to seek the truths in themselves and go towards what is scary and lean in and show up in their lives. It's just magnificent. They are those women I admire to be, and it's an honor to work with them.
Well, part of what comes up for me is thinking about when it was in the history of our evolution as women where we became ashamed of our bodies, right?
Yeah.
Some cultures are not ashamed of their bodies. I have a friend, I have people I know from Hawaii, and anybody I know in Hawaii, they grow up going in the water naked, and that's the way they live.
Yeah.
But we have somehow, put the mark of shame in the full expression of who we are. It's painful and it affects us in ways. How does your work help bring that shame, to its proper place and rise up so we can feel confident about who we are in our skin?
Yeah. There was actually one very specific act I created for a show we have called Sexual Revolution, and it was very specifically about body shame. And I remember I brought it to the group and said I want this to be a group act, and I got that same moment of terror I get from workshop participants sometimes, because I said, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it in a very minimalist style, meaning only pasties and only in a nude thong underwear. And there's going to be no body glitter, there's going to be no lotion, there's going to be no body paint, there's going to be no stockings. It's going to be all us.
Yeah.
And at that moment I realized what I was saying, and that I needed to rise to the occasion first.
Right.
And look inside and say, am I really okay with the cellulite on my thighs and the stretch marks on my hips, and that one breast is larger than the other or not? Or if I'm bloated that day, or if I have a rash on my skin, or whatever it is. We're going to do it with our real hair, our real skin. Everything about it is going to be as authentic as possible. And digging in and moving through the process of just trying to be a role model, even if I'm faking it, to make it that one time, was transformative for me, to really dip into self-love for the first time and say, okay, this is my body. I'm going to practice a moment of acceptance. And my goal in that act was to, for 2 minutes, help our audience feel what it might feel like to not have body shame. And to do that, for 2 full minutes, that's all. It doesn't seem like a long time, but it is. For 2 minutes, to be free of body shame for myself.
Wow.
And it was a journey, and it took practice. It took every day rehearsing that routine as a vehicle to help my own transformation.
There have been many people in generations and generations that, have been so beautiful in performing and dance and just being out there. you know, we've seen dance groups come through, and in our culture right now, you know, okay, so You Think You Can Dance is a great show for me. I'm sorry.
That one's fun.
I love that show.
It's incredible dancers.
My next lifetime, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna be like one of those people. But yet, it's interesting that I only see that for somebody else and I don't see it for me, right? I mean, I don't see myself on stage and perhaps wearing a costume like that. And then I ask myself, well, why? Well, because why? Probably don't think I look good enough. Probably don't think I'm good enough. So aren't you really addressing a much deeper issue here?
Yes, it definitely is. And I had those same stories too, and
Did
I still
you?
have them some days. Absolutely, they're still in there. They're deep. Just saying, I'm not sure if I am good enough. I don't know if I'm good enough today, and that's what part of being a troupe. It really it's helpful for that moment when I can come and say, I don't feel good enough to be here today, and our friends and our sisters can be there to support us and either say, of course you are, or say nothing and just let me have
Right.
that moment
Right.
of being authentic, and then come back ready to be my full self. I think that's such a tremendous process, and yeah, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It's not something you can do alone. It's not something
No.
you can do alone.
So what are some of the challenges that you had to overcome to step into this part of your life, this part of the journey?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sitting here, I never thought in a million years you'd get me behind a camera. There's no way. I mean, why do you think I've been doing radio for over 10 years? But
Yeah.
whatever it is calling us forth. How about you? What did you have to like push aside?
Oh gosh, so many things.
Yeah.
I'll just tell you the most present one.
All right.
The most present one for me is to not compartmentalize my life and to really work to integrate to be a whole person. And what that shows up as is having this business consulting life where I wear a blazer and I look very put together and I don't have a pink streak in my hair and I desexualize myself to go to work, versus this evening nightlife lady who's fancy and voluptuous and loves to be sensual and own her sexuality in any way she chooses. I have two different business cards.
Right.
One for one of these sides of myself and one for the other. And so the current personal work that I'm doing and that my life is facilitating for me is realizing they're the same person. And
Yeah.
that I can own that and I don't have to hide a significant part of myself walking around in my day-to-day life. And I do have the privilege in the sense that that's still safe for me. For a lot of people, that's not safe. And as I do have the privilege, I think it's my responsibility to take advantage of it and really make sure that I bring my fullest self.
Yeah.
My professional self is my personal self,
Right.
is my political self, is my sexual self.
Right.
They're all me.
Yeah, it is a challenge, isn't it? I mean, you know, I know exactly what you're talking about because many of the people that are watching this now or that listen to the show, you know, they have a view of who I am because of the nature of what I talk about. And, you know, so if I wake up one day and I start to talk about the Super Bowl, I'll get an email like, you can't possibly be watching football, right? There's
Right.
no way. You know, it's the most brutal sport, you know, and then my answer is, well, the good news is I gave up watching boxing.
Right.
Okay? But,
Yeah.
you know, but I'm human too. And it's hard sometimes being you. And it's hard sometimes being me. But isn't it harder not being me?
Yeah, it's more
what I mean?
painful. And that's
Oh.
where the suffering
Oh.
occurs. That's where it is, at the heart of the suffering. When I'm trying to debate whether I can be competent and sexy and powerful at the same time, the fact that it's even a question is an example of the suffering of not allowing myself to be who I am designed to be.
I want to ask you a question probably, and I would love to see what you brought. I know you didn't bring them here, but I still would like to bring them on. You know, it's interesting. I've interviewed Gloria Steinem, who most people don't even know who she is. And I met her when I was in my corporate world. And you know, I remember she came in and we had this big corporate executive thing and we went in a room and Gloria gets up there and says, you know, I'd like everyone to remove all the chairs, right?
Radical.
And everybody looked at her like, why? And she said, I'd like everybody to sit on the floor. And then I got to talk to her again when I started to do the show, and I asked her about, the women of today and how willing folks are to share, their bodies. And, at the time, she said, we could learn from them. And I believe that that's true. I think we can learn, from you. We can learn not to be ashamed. What do you think the greatest gift is for us in that lesson?
Gosh, that's a great question. Greatest gift in that. I think the greatest gift would be to mentor us, to mentor the newer generation of women. I think that we want that and we crave that, and that intergenerational dialogue, I think, is missing, and it's missing for me personally. I want more of that. I crave that, and so I think it would be a gift to us to receive the wisdom and experience of the women who've come before, who have laid all of the groundwork for even the possibility of me being able to think about the work that I do or consider it a possibility.
Right.
And to get to share your stories, to share your wisdom, get to help cultivate a new generation of women and understand where we are as much as we can understand where you are and you're coming from. And it is a developmental process. There's no answer to it. It's a fluid dialogue.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd love to see if we could have, can you talk to us a little bit about, I know you didn't bring this for this.
Yeah.
But I would bring the whole box.
Sounds great.
Let's have the box.
There's a couple things on top of the box.
Let's bring the box. About your heads. I make daughters' heads. I never thought that I would. But I got these appetizer forks as a joke one year at a White Elephant. And I just said, they're not going to come back.
Creativity strikes.
And so I started creating. Bring the box, Lenny.
Oh, it's heavy, but
box.
the stuff on top could work.
On top.
There's books and things in the bottom. So. Yeah, the flowers.
Yeah.
Or the gloves. Perfect.
And the gloves.
Grab a feather from the bag.
Yeah, grab the feather from the bag.
Stuff.
Come on. So I want to have you share how you've used these in your workshop.
Yeah.
Because it's all part, for some people, even exploring this is a stretch.
It is.
Right?
It is.
For
and it's
people.
Controversial. It's very provocative.
Controversial and provocative, maybe.
For some, yes.
For some. Oh, that's great. I love those. Wow. I love these.
Thank you.
So did you ask people to put these on? Tell us a little bit about how you play in the workshop.
Well, I've always loved dress up my whole life. My grandmother was a seamstress, so that's just always been in my blood. What I typically do in a workshop will bring a goodie bag.
It is so me, isn't it? I know.
A goodie bag, and people get to just try them out. Sometimes I just let them check it out. Sometimes I invite them to touch things like feathers are very soft, and so it helps them get in touch with just the softer,
People
more feminine
are really
side.
afraid to even do that. You know that, right?
Yeah, and some people choose not to, and just observe
don't
someone
want
else
to.
trying it on. Some people just like to put a little hair flower in because then they feel fancy and beautiful, and that's
right.
enough.
And Linda just walked away, that crazy. We have a dozen of these. I mean, this is like, she's my best friend, and she's staying with me for a little bit, and we went out and we got a dozen.
So fun.
Oh my God,
They're
they
just
are so
a
fun.
little
and they're beautiful.
bit of glamour in your world. So some people, that is just enough to feel beautiful. Other people, when I'm teaching about how to embody your pleasure or how to speak your wants more clearly, we'll do more tactile activities with some of these. If they want to get really serious, if somebody really wants to embody their power, they might put on a giant headdress and prance around like they're the queen or goddess or whatever it might be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Absolutely.
reveal in burlesque, both symbolic and literal. So sometimes they'll play with gloves and practice taking it on and off to reveal a truth or a story or their arm, and to just have the experience of peeling off layers, so to speak.
Well, you know, and like Linda said, yes, this is so me. But you know, I'm more leather and lace.
Yes.
Totally.
We have some of that too.
There we go. But you know, part of this though is also the honoring of who we are and the sensuality.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know that we would have been given skin that has so many nerve endings if we were not to experience them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the greatest lessons I hope to impart on women is that you deserve. You deserve to want, and you deserve pleasure, and you deserve to ask for it. Even if you don't get it, you deserve to want it and have it.
Well, Kat, thank you so much for today. Tell everybody the best way to find out more about you.
Sure. You can find me at catcuevas.com or sinnersaintburlesque.com.
Thanks, Kat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. How fun.
I will.
Check it out, everybody. Thank you. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.